Before we jump into our last segment, I want to share a moment with you from the movie Evan Almighty. It's a conversation between God, played by the only man qualified for the role, Morgan Freeman, and Evan's wife. She's feeling like her life is falling apart. Instead of fixing it for her, God drops something deeper, something that reframes everything. Check this out.
You heard of New York's Noah?
The guy who's building the ark.
That's him.
I love that story. Knowing the ark. You know, a lot of people miss the point of that story. They think it's about God's wrath and anger. They love it when God gets angry.
What is the story about then, the ark?
Well, I think it's a love story about believing in each other. You know, the animals showed up in pairs. They stood by each other, side by side, just like Noah and his family. Everybody entered the ark side by side.
But my husband says God told him to do it. What do you do with that?
Sounds like an opportunity. Let me ask you something. If someone prays for patience, you think God gives them patience? Or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? If they prayed for courage, does God give them courage, or does he give them opportunities to be courageous? If someone prayed for the family to be closer, do you think God zaps them with warm, fuzzy feelings? Or does he give them opportunities to love each other? Well, I gotta run. A lot of people to serve.
Every time I watch that, I feel like I've been politely but firmly handed a spiritual mirror. That line, if someone prays for patience, do you think God gives them patience, or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? That's just not Hollywood writing. That's real life. That's everyday faith in action. So let's talk about it. Let's break down what it really means when we say God gives us opportunity. Not in a poetic way, but in a messy, inconvenient, wildly beautiful type of way. In Evan Almighty, Morgan Freeman drops this gem. If someone prays for patience, do you think God gives them patience? Or does he simply give them the opportunity to be patient? This flips everything. God's not Amazon Prime. He's a gardener. He plants seeds in our lives, not finished products. We often think unanswered prayers mean silence, but maybe the answer came disguised as a challenge we didn't want to deal with. Divine timing looks like awkward inconvenience. Opportunities from God rarely show up labeled holy moment. They show up when you're tired, annoyed, underqualified, or late. It's that person you didn't want to talk to, the job you almost didn't apply for, the apology you didn't want to give. Growth starts right at the edge of your comfort zone, and God lives in that edge. The universe, or God, depending on your language, has a funny way of tapping us on the shoulder and saying, tag, you're it. Opportunity doesn't always feel good, but they're good for you. God's opportunities sometimes come wrapped in chaos. You lose the job and gain your purpose. You get rejected and redirected. You fall apart and finally meet the version of you that knows how to rebuild. In hindsight, the hardest moments are often the ones that shaped us the most. That wasn't failure. That was divine setup disguised as a plot twist. So you have to say yes to see the why. Opportunity is only opportunity if you recognize it and respond. That requires trust, often blind trust. Maybe you've been praying for change, but you keep ghosting the situations where change is possible. Saying yes might feel scary, but it's also sacred. Every yes to growth is a yes to becoming more of who you were created to be. All in all, you're not being tested, you're being trusted. The idea isn't God is testing me. That sounds like a cosmic pop quiz. The better frame is God is trusting you. You're trusted with influence, with growth, with healing, with moments that stretch you and reveal you at the same time. You're not just here by chance, you're here by invitation. So maybe when you ask God for strength, God didn't hand you muscles, He handed you mountains. When you asked for clarity, He gave you the fog and said, walk anyway. Because divine opportunity doesn't show up to impress you, it shows up to transform you. And your yes might be the start of something sacred. So take the risk, trust the process, and remember, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not divine. God doesn't always give us what we want, but He gives us what we need to become who we're meant to be. It may not be easy, and it may not be instant, but it might just be your clearance track calling. Say yes to the lesson, because self-care isn't always scented candles. Sometimes it's spiritual